Hello and welcome to Arnie's Short Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. Gurnard's Ghastly Light. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the Isle of Wight's coastline in hues of orange and crimson. Holly Arnold stood on Gurnard Beach, clutching her coat against the biting wind. She stared out at the sea, where the first of the lights flickered eerie blue orbs hovering just above the waves. The locals called it the Ghost Lantern. For centuries, the mysterious light had been the subject of whispered legends. Some claimed it was a warning from shipwrecked souls, while others swore it was a malevolent force luring sailors to their doom. Holly, a journalist with a penchant for ghostly tales, had come to investigate the phenomenon. She wasn't alone. A local historian, Edwin Marsh, had agreed to guide her. He arrived, his figure hunched against the wind, holding a lantern of his own. "Right on time," he said. Holly nodded, her eyes fixed on the glowing orb. Edwin adjusted his glasses. The most enduring tale is that of the Mistral Queen. It was a merchant ship that sank off this coast in 1856 during a violent storm. All hands lost. Some say the light is the spirit of Captain Jebediah Cray. A chill ran down Holly's spine, though the wind couldn't reach beneath her layers. Then others, some believe it's the souls of the crew, trapped in a loop of despair. He hesitated. Yet there are darker theories, too, that the light isn't guiding anyone but instead feeding on them. That night Holly couldn't sleep. She had rented a small cottage near the beach, and through the window she could see the light bobbing in the distance. It seemed almost alive, pulsing rhythmically, as if calling to her. Unable to resist, she grabbed her flashlight and made her way back to the shore. The tide was low, exposing jagged rocks slick with algae. The light remained steady, almost beckoning her. "Hello," she called out. The light blinked, then split into two, both moving closer to the shore. Holly's heart pounded as she stumbled back. As the orbs approached, she could see faint outlines of figure emerging from the glow. It was a man, his features gaunt, his eyes hollow and lifeless. His clothes were tattered, soaked as if he just emerged from the sea. "Help us," his voice was a rasp. Holly froze. The figure raised a skeletal hand, pointing toward the beach's edge where the rocks formed a natural barrier. And then he vanished, the light dissolving into the night, unearthing the past. The next morning, Holly shared her encounter with Edwin. His brow furrowed deeply as he listened. "I've heard of sightings before, but never like this." If he said beneath, it could mean the cave systems along the cliffs. With Edwin's help, they gathered equipment and set out during low tide. The caves were damp and cold, the air heavy with the scent of salt and decay. Holly's flashlight beam danced along the walls, revealing old markings, names carved into the stone. "Look at this," Edwin said. Embedded in it was a tarnished brass plate, Mistral Queen. As they searched further, Holly's foot struck something metallic. She knelt, brushing away the sand to reveal an old compass. Its glass was cracked, but it still pointed true north. That's no ordinary compass. In maritime lore. Before Holly could respond, the cave darkened, and the temperature dropped sharply. The light had returned, glowing fiercely at the cave entrance. The same figure appeared, but this time he wasn't alone. Behind him, shadowy forms swirled, their mournful cries echoing through the chamber. "Return us. Return us to the sea." Holly and Edwin worked quickly. Using the compass as a focal point, they performed a makeshift ceremony based on maritime traditions. They gathered tokens from the wreckwood, the compass, and a fragment of the captain's log they'd uncovered and placed them in a shallow pit near the water's edge. As they lit the small pyre, the wind howled, and the lights gathered overhead, swelling like a spectral tempest. The lead figure appeared again, his expression softer, almost grateful. "Thank you," he whispered before the light soared into the night sky. Epilogue. The beach was eerily quiet the next morning, as if the world had been scrubbed clean of the haunting presence. The light was gone, and the tide brought in no more wreckage. Holly packed her things, knowing the story she'd write would be her most haunting yet. As she boarded the ferry back to the mainland, she glanced over the water. For a moment she thought she saw a flicker of blue light, but when she blinked it was gone. Some mysteries, she realized, were best left undisturbed. But even as she told herself this, Holly couldn't shake the sense that her journey with the Mistral Queen was far from over. Back in her London flat, she pored over her notes and photographs, trying to capture the eerie beauty of the event she had witnessed. Yet, when she tried to write the final words of her article, her mind faltered. The compass, now polished and resting on her desk, seemed to shimmer faintly under the light. She hadn't intended to take it, but in the chaos of the ritual it had somehow ended up in her bag. It was harmless, she reassured herself, just a souvenir of her encounter. That night her dreams were restless. The haunting begins. Holly dreamt she was aboard a ship tossed by a violent storm. The creaking of wood and the howling of wind filled her ears as ghostly figures swarmed the deck. The captain stood at the helm, his face obscured by shadows, but his voice rang clear. "You took what belongs to the sea," he growled. "Return it." She woke with a start, the compass glowing faintly on her desk. The air in her flat felt unnaturally cold, and the faint scent of brine lingered in the room. "Holly, you're losing it," she muttered. But the dreams returned, more vivid each time. A woman in a drowned wedding dress appeared, her veil billowing like seaweed as she whispered warnings of doom. The voices of the crew echoed in her ears, crying out for salvation. The call of the deep. Holly's research led her to a startling discovery. The Mistral Queen had not merely been a merchant vessel. It had carried a forbidden cargo, gold coins stolen from a sacred temple in the East Indies. The ship's misfortune, according to records, wasn't just a storm but a curse placed upon the treasure. The compass, it seemed, wasn't a mere navigational tool, but an artifact tied to the treasure's curse. It had guided the ship to its doom, and now sought to drag Holly into the same fate. Desperate for answers, Holly reached out to Edwin. When she explained the strange occurrences, his face darkened. "You have to take it back. If the compass is tied to the curse, keeping it risks more than just your safety. It could awaken the spirits in full force." Holly asked, her voice shaking. "The light's gone. The spirits are gone, not entirely. The sea always remembers. You need to return it to the exact spot where the ship went down." With Edwin's help, Holly chartered a small boat. The captain, an older fisherman named Tom, agreed to take them to the coordinates of the Mistral Queen's wreck. The sea was calm as they departed, but as they neared the site, the air grew heavy, and the waves turned choppy. "Here," Tom said. "Oh." Holly held the compass tightly, its surface ice cold. "What if this doesn't work?" "But then you might join them." As Holly leaned over the side of the boat, the water below seemed to ripple unnaturally. The compass pulsed in her hand, almost like a heartbeat. "Return it," came a voice, low and resonant. She let the compass slip from her fingers, watching as it sank into the depths. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the sea erupted in a brilliant display of light blue, green, and gold. The spectral forms of the crew appeared once more, their faces serene. Thank you." The light faded, and the water stilled. Holly collapsed onto the deck, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Clover. Back on land, Holly felt a strange peace settle over her. The dreams ceased, and the air in her flat was no longer tainted with the scent of salt water. She wrote her story, omitting the most supernatural details. Some truths, she decided, were too strange to share. But she couldn't resist one final visit to Gurnard Beach before leaving the Isle of Wight for good. Standing on the shore at dusk, she watched the tide roll in. For the first time, the horizon was dark, unbroken by the glow of ghostly lights. As she turned to leave, she whispered a quiet prayer for the crew of the Mistral Queen. The wind carried her words out to sea, where they were swallowed by the endless waves. And though Holly never saw the lights again, she couldn't shake the feeling that the sea was watching, always waiting for its next tale to tell. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had or have a great day.